Hello, this is Christina here at the Stage Nature Center. I'll be getting started in just a few minutes. I'm going to give us a little bit more time to get let some people get checked in, and then we'll get started talking about Michigan's canids. Hello, this is Christina again at the Stage Nature Center, and we'll get started here in just a moment talking about Michigan's canids. All right. Hi, this is Christina here with the Stage Nature Center here in Troy, Michigan, and I'm excited to have you guys with us again today. We're going to be talking about Michigan's canids, which is the wild dogs of Michigan, especially the ones that we can see here at the Stage Nature Center. We'll be talking about that here in just a few moments. Before we get started on that, just to give you a few updates, as many of you may know if you've been watching these, the building remains closed at this time. We will be reopening the Stage Nature Center building starting June 16th, and that is our current plan. So you can come and see our exhibits in person, say hi. We will have some limitations when we do reopen to keep people safe. We'll have limitations on the amount of people that are going to be allowed in the building, asking people to wear masks and so forth. And all of those expectations will be shared when people come to visit and on our website. Right now the trails remain open, so you're more than welcome to come out on the trails, and we highly encourage that you come out on the trails and can continue to practice social distancing, keep 6 feet apart, so that way people can enjoy the trails safely and everybody can feel comfortable. There's plenty of room to do that, but definitely come on out on the trails. And I'm going to continue to do these live Facebook programs as of right now through the end of June. We will be starting up some of our in-person programs here in mid to end of June, so you can look for those on our website. We're going to do some of our smaller programs. We're also going to limit the number of people that can register for those as well, again, to practice social distancing and to keep people safe. So you can find out all of that information on our website, stagenaturecenter.org, and we'll be updating our Facebook page here as well with all of that information. So we're excited to get to start doing programs for you all again, although I know I've been doing these programs for the last few months, which has been amazing. I'm so glad that I've been able to connect with you guys. I've missed seeing everyone. I know I've seen quite a few of you out on the trails, so if I've seen you out on the trails, hello again, or I've seen you here for the native plant sale. It's been great getting to talk to people while we've been closed, and I'll be excited to get to see people again. So we do take donations. You can donate on our Facebook page here. There should be a donate button. You can also donate on our website, stagenaturecenter.org. We've greatly appreciated everyone's donations and support, especially during this time while we're closed and haven't been able to do our live programs that we usually charge a small fee, because those help to support the Stage Nature Center. We are a nonprofit, and that is the main way that we are able to do what we do, and to take care of the animals here, which a lot of you have met over the past few months and we'll get to see again when we reopen. So with that said, again, today I'll be talking about some of the canids of Michigan, the wild dogs, and we'll be seeing some video and some photos here to talk about them. I'm also going to show you a few things here before we get started with the presentation. I'm going to show you here in just a moment some mounts that we have of some of these wild dogs. So when we talk about wild dogs here in Michigan, we have 4 species that you can see here in Michigan, 4 types of wild dogs, and that includes the wolf, coyote, the gray fox, and the red fox. The wolf you're not going to see down in this part of Michigan. They're very rare in Michigan, although they've been doing some reintroduction efforts up in the UP and Isle Royale to try to help those populations come back. And so you can possibly see a wolf up there. But down here and at the Stage Nature Center, the 3 canids we're more likely to see would be the coyote, the red fox, and the gray fox, which is what we're really going to focus on today, are those 3 species. I'm going to turn around the laptop here so you can see the 3 mounts that I have. Okay, so here is the coyote. And sorry, I'm trying to do this with the laptop instead of a iPad camera. So this is the coyote, and then over here we can see the the red fox. Let me go back this way. You can see the red fox and then the gray fox. So the gray fox and the red fox are actually quite a bit smaller from the coyote. But even so, coyotes, they have long legs, but they're still not as big as people think they are. They're not around 100 pounds like a lot of people think. A lot of our dogs are actually larger than coyotes are. They're very slender, although their fur can get thick, especially during the winter time, which makes them look a little bit bigger. The red fox and the gray fox, their colorations are quite a bit different. Typically, the red fox usually has more of a reddish color to its fur, and the gray fox typically has more gray in its fur, as you can see here. However, sometimes they can look very similar because there's a lot of variations in their color between the 2 species. So the best way to tell the difference between the 2 species, if you're having trouble figuring it out, because sometimes the gray fox can have some more red in its fur and vice versa, is by looking at that tail. The gray fox has a black tip to its tail. So that's how you can tell it's a gray fox, whereas the red fox will have, now unfortunately this fur that we have here lost part of its tail. This happens sometimes when we're sharing the furs with the kiddos. Sometimes we get a little too excited. So the end of this tail did come off, but this is the end of it. So the tip of the red fox is usually a whitish color. So here is the gray fox, and here is the red fox. So that's one way, actually the best way you can tell the difference between the 2 species. If you see a fox that has a black tip to its tail, then it's a gray fox. If it has a whitish tip to its tail, then it's a red fox. And those are the 2 main ways to tell the difference. I do have a coyote fur here as well, which is quite a bit bigger. Coyotes can have a combination of gray and brown. Sometimes they have a little bit of a reddish tint to them as well. And coyotes are bigger than gray foxes and red foxes. A couple other things I want to show you before we get to the videos is their skulls. So this is the skull of a coyote. Turn it here so you can see it. Not quite as big as a wolf, but definitely much larger than a fox. You can see those canines there, which are characteristic of the canids. They've got those canines because they do eat meat, although a lot of these canids are known for also eating some plants as well. And then the red fox here, let me show you one of these in comparison. Here's a fox skull. It is a little bit smaller. Let's see if I can show you both here in the camera. So here's the coyote and here's the fox. And that's, by looking at those teeth, you can tell that they are canines. Another thing that our canines usually have, and I'll show you an image here in just a minute, is something called a sagittal crest. So you can see at the back of the skull here, the skull comes to a point. It looks like somebody has pinched the end of the skull. And that is significant in identifying their skulls. Mostly animals that are carnivores will have this kind of sagittal crest because it helps with the jaw muscles. When it attaches to the skull, it gives them more strength in their jaw muscles. So that's one way you can identify the skull. And I'll show you some images here in just a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and switch it over to our presentation so I can show you some of these photos and videos that I've put together for you guys. I am trying to check the comments as we do this presentation, so I will do my best to answer your questions while I'm presenting. If I don't get around to answering your question at the end of the presentation, I'll go back through and check the comments to see if there were any that I missed, and I will try to answer those questions the best that I can. All right. So you should be able to see now the pictures that I have up on the screen that I had at the very beginning of the presentation. Oh, let me flip back to, there we go. Okay. So these are the pictures that I started the presentation off with that show the 4 different types of canids that we have here in Michigan. Like I said, we're mostly going to talk about the coyote. So the first picture up and to the left, that's a wolf. That's the gray wolf. Then to the right of that is the coyote. To the bottom of the coyote with the reddish color, that's the red fox. And then to the left of the red fox on the bottom is the gray fox. Now, one reason I really wanted to talk about these guys is because there are definitely a lot of conflicts between people and the canids that we have, because of concerns of having interactions with our pets. Also, people, of course, are concerned about these animals being aggressive towards people. So these are some of the things that we're going to talk about today. First, I'm going to give you some information, and then we'll talk a little bit about human interactions. So this is a great image to show the difference between a coyote and a wolf, because a lot of people will still see these animals and not realize that we don't have wolves in this part of Michigan, and they'll think that what they're seeing is a wolf. But there are some differences. So coyotes are generally smaller. As you can see, the coyote is generally about 1.5 feet tall and about 4 feet long, whereas the wolf is about 2.5 feet tall and 5 to 6 feet long. So they are quite a bit bigger. Their weight is also quite a bit different. So the wolf is about 80 to 120 pounds, whereas the coyote is only about 20 to 50 pounds. So a lot of people are surprised to hear that. Again, they are tall, but they don't have a lot of meat on their bones. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you're trying to see if it's a coyote or if it's somebody's pet dog that has gotten out, is by looking at their stature and their size. The wolves that we have here tend to have light gray to black colored fur, whereas coyotes have that light gray and brown with a little bit of reddish mixed into their fur. Wolves tend to have, obviously they have larger feet, so they have larger feet than the coyotes. Here's some images of their skulls as well. I showed you the skull already on camera, but here's a good comparison between the skulls of Michigan's canids. So the first skull there, the Canis lupus, that is the wolf, which again, we're not going to find down in this region. The next one, next to that, the Canis latrans, sorry, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. That is the coyote. And then the two that are smaller next to that, those are the foxes. So vulpus is the red fox, and the Eurocyon, I'm probably going to butcher this name, Cinerio argenteus, is the gray fox. So you can see that they're very similar in size, the gray fox and the red fox, but they're quite a bit smaller. So this is the top of the skull, as if you're looking down, those big holes are where the eye sockets are. And then this is if you're looking up from the bottom, so you can see the teeth of the top part of the skull. Now you probably didn't think we'd be talking about poop today, but poop is actually very important in identifying animals. For the scientists here, we call this scat, and we can tell a coyote or a fox has been in an area because of that. Now, we do have coyotes and foxes here at the Stage Nature Center. We don't often see them, but we do more often see their scat. I've seen coyote scat along the trails before. And the top picture here is the coyote scat, and the two bottom pictures are fox scat. So the big difference is coyote scat, especially between coyotes and our dogs, is that coyote scat is not usually clumped together in piles like our dogs. They usually taper at the ends, like you can kind of see in this picture here, and they usually have some kind of fur mixed in with it. So a lot of times their scat is kind of a grayish in color, and it has the fur mixed in with it. So it does look quite a bit different from dog scat if you're trying to identify it. And in the bottom two pictures, you can see the fox scat, and fox scat will have plant matter sometimes mixed in with it because they do sometimes eat plants in addition to other animals. Another thing you want to keep in mind when you're trying to identify a coyote track versus a dog track is our dogs, if you have a dog, you probably know that when they're walking along, they don't always walk in the straightest path. They like to go back and forth and zigzag because they want to see everything. So a dog track, if you're going to see the tracks out in the trails or anywhere, dog tracks usually go back and forth, in kind of like a zigzag pattern. Whereas coyote tracks, from their feet, they're usually going to be in a straight line. And that's because coyotes are more concerned about survival. They're more concerned about getting where they need to go and less concerned about seeing everything. So they usually are going to have that straight track. They're not going to zigzag back and forth because they know where they want to go. So that's one way you can distinguish between coyote tracks and dog tracks. So that's our discussion of poop for today, or again, as we would call it, is scat. So now we're going to watch some videos about some of these. We're going to see some videos with some of these different animals. This first picture that you see here are red foxes. And these are actually red fox kits. So they're young red foxes. They're actually pretty adorable. And red foxes are actually found throughout much of the northern hemisphere, from the Arctic Circle to Central America. So they have a really wide range. They have been introduced to Australia and the Falkland Islands as well. But the red fox actually has the widest distribution of any canid that you're going to find. So again, canids are wild dogs. They like different kinds of habitats, including forest, tundra, prairie, desert, mountains, farmlands, urban areas. So they are very well adapted to lots of different types of habitats, which is one of the reasons we're going to see them. You can see them around your home. But they do prefer mixed like vegetation communities, such as edge habitats, where you're going to see edges of tree lines, and mixed woodland type habitat. So these two fox kits are a picture by a friend of mine named Dawn Vesna. She's a good friend, and her and I will go out a lot of the times and take photographs and videos of the different wildlife. And this was from a few years ago, actually, from a fox family that was seen at Lake St. Clair Metro Park. And this fox family had a den that was right out where a lot of people could see it, not very far from the parking lot. So we had a unique opportunity to be able to see them. Actually, when I got there, the fox family was gone, and I'll tell you about that in just a moment because there is a belief as to what happened. But Dawn was able to get some amazing footage of this fox family as they were running around. So I'm going to go forward to this here. So here's the first footage I'm going to show you. These are a couple of the fox kits. There were a total of 8. And I think this fox kit is playing with something like a branch or something like that. So they do have, oops, I'm going to go ahead and go to the next one here. So they do have their families in dens, and they use mounds of dirt to have their dens. So like I said, there were 8 kits here. And this was really an amazing experience to get to see them. And at this site at Lake St. Clair Metro Park, they actually did have the site roped off with caution tape so that way people couldn't get too close and so that way people weren't disturbing them too much. Now, unfortunately, a very excited viewer, at least this is what we've been told, who was viewing the family, wanted desperately to try to get a picture with them and got too close to them and tried to get right up with one of the fox kits. And that was stressful enough of an experience for the mom that after that happened, the fox kits and the mom were no longer seen, and it looked like the den site became vacant. So from what it is believed is that the mom actually moved the fox kits to a new den site because of the stress of people trying to, or someone trying to get too close to them. So, you know, when people were far back and away, staying behind the caution tape, as you can see here, the fox family felt perfectly comfortable. You know, it's okay to view wildlife if you're giving them their space and respect, but if you get too close, just like we don't like people intruding upon our families uninvited and on our homes, they don't like it either. And from the understanding is that they ended up moving their family, and so people couldn't see them anymore. But while they're there, it was an amazing experience. So red foxes, they typically breed once a year, and they'll have anywhere from 1 to 9 offspring. So this was a pretty large family of 8 offspring. Average, they have about 5 offspring a year. And they, let's see. So so usually they're weaned at about 56 to 70 days is when they're weaned from their mom. So the breeding season, it varies from region to region around the country. It usually begins in December or January in the South, and January to February in the central regions of the United States, and February to April in the northern region. So up here, their breeding season would probably be more so in the February to April times of the year. And of course, all of this depends on weather patterns and differences from year to year, but that's generally when they're going to be breeding. So, you know, some people are afraid of foxes, although they're not as afraid of foxes as they are coyotes because they are smaller. Foxes, they're basically omnivores, so they'll eat which means they'll eat both plants and animals. They'll eat mostly rodents, so small animals. Sometimes they'll eat rabbits, they'll eat insects, and they'll even eat fruit. So remember I showed you that poop earlier, or which is again called their scat, that showed some of this plant matter in their scat. Sometimes they'll eat carrion, so they'll eat dead animals after they've died. And they will store their food. And they will sometimes relocate these caches of food that they have. So they're able to store their food so that way they have food for later on. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about the gray fox. Oh, I meant to mention the lifespan. I'm sorry. Just to go back to the red fox. The red fox has a lifespan in the wild of about 3 years old, is about how old they'll get. In captivity, they've been known to live up to 12 to 15 years. Okay. So again, here is the gray fox. So I told you earlier that the main way to see or tell the difference between the gray fox and the red fox is the tip of that tail. So you can see here in this picture that the gray fox has a black tip to its tail. The red fox you're probably a little bit more likely to see than the gray fox, but the gray fox is also found throughout Michigan and much of North America, except for the northwest part of the United States. So we are likely to see the gray fox here as well. And gray foxes, just like red foxes, are also omnivores, which means that they eat both animals and plants. So I'm going to go forward to a video here that I found on YouTube. So some of these animals I don't have videos of, although I'm trying to build my video library so I can show these all these images with you guys. But this was a video from YouTube, and I put the person's name at the bottom of the video. And this was a video footage of a fox family, a mother gray fox and her babies in that area. So I'm going to go forward here to that. Turn the music down a little bit here so I can still talk. If the music is too loud and you can't hear me, please put a comment in the comment section here to let me know if you can't hear me. Okay, but I thought I would let the music play on since the person who did this YouTube video put that music to the video, and I believe from what I read it was their music. So here you can see the mother gray fox, and you can actually see that you can see that her tits are swollen, which means that she's got milk to provide for her babies. Again, you can see that black tip to her tail, and that's the main way to tell the difference between the gray fox and the red fox. Foxes are very skittish, so if they see people, they're most likely to run off, and that's one reason we don't see them very often. Now here she's going to show in the video some footage of the fox babies playing. Now, one of the things foxes can do, especially the gray fox, I don't know if you see these foxes here, but they're climbing up the tree. So gray foxes are actually more known for climbing up trees, it's not impossible to see them up in a tree. They're not going to go all the way to the tops of huge trees, but they might go up a little bit in trees. So that's why some people refer to the gray fox as the tree fox. And it's the only member of the wild dog family that climbs trees. And they actually even been known to hunt in the trees and to use them to escape larger predators. So if you see a fox climbing a tree, you can be pretty sure that it's a gray fox and not a red fox, because the red fox is not likely to climb trees. I see, does the red fox have predators in the wild resulting in such a shorter lifespan? Yes, they do. And that's true for a lot of animals in the wild. They don't tend to not live as long as in captivity, is because of coming across predators. And, you know, those first few years, or this first year even, of their lives is very important. And that's when they're most vulnerable, is when they're babies. They're most vulnerable to predation. This is especially true of these young pups. So, animals that might attack foxes include things like coyotes, wolves, other predators such as bears, mountain lions, and humans, of course, are one of the most significant predators to them because humans hunt foxes for their fur, and they also kill them in large numbers as pests. So that's one thing to keep in mind. We do have a hunting and trapping season here in Michigan for the foxes and coyote, but it's important to follow those regulations because the DNR keeps track of these numbers that people are taking, so that way they can make sure we're not taking too much. And again, a lot of people consider them a nuisance, but they are very important to the habitat and especially to the food cycle and or to the food web. And they eat a lot of these smaller mammals that are part of the food web, so especially things like rodents and mice. So they are very important to the food web. So again, this is some video that we're watching here of gray foxes. You can see that they're quite playful. And they're amazingly acrobatic, actually. So gray foxes, they have, let's see. So their typical lifespan in the wild is about 6 to 10 years, and their lifespan in captivity is usually about 6 to 12 years. So it might be a little bit more than the red fox, but they also typically have the same predators as the red foxes, including things like bobcats. The young especially can be predated upon by things like eagles and great horned owls, and again, coyotes. I'm just taking a look here to see if there were any other questions that I missed, trying not to make my screen disappear. I don't think so. Okay. So gray foxes, like red foxes, they also breed once a year, and they're usually breeding in the winter as well, December through March. They tend to have about 1 to 7 offspring, so pretty close in size to the red fox as far as the number of offspring that they're going to have. Something that's also interesting is that for gray foxes, both genders take care of their babies. Before the babies are born, the males do the majority of the hunting, while the females look for and prepare a suitable den for them. And then until the babies are weaned, both parents will pray for food, and the pups will practice their hunting skills with them. And they'll practice these skills by, as you saw in these pictures, by pouncing and stalking, which these skills are usually taught by the father. And you could see those characteristics in the video really well here. So a lot of times when we see animals that look like they're playing, especially the babies, they're actually practicing those really important skills that are going to help them survive as an adult. All right. Before I move on, I'm just checking the comments here to see if anybody had any other questions. I don't think I see any others. So we're going to move on to the coyote. Now this is probably an animal that is one of the biggest topics of conversation of people, especially in the suburbs, as their population numbers grow. Coyotes are still very important to the ecosystem, and a lot of people are afraid of them, which is definitely understandable, but that's why we like to teach about them, because we want people to understand a little bit more about them so they're educated and know how to deal with them if they see coyotes. But coyotes, their numbers are definitely increasing in suburban areas. They've become very well adapted to hunting around people. We've had the DNR here at the Stage Nature Center before to teach people about coyotes and to teach about why they're so important to the ecosystem, but also how to live peacefully with coyotes, especially as we continue to see more of them. I know if any of you are members of the Nextdoor app or the Nextdoor group, I'm a member of the Nextdoor group for the neighborhood I live in. One of the things that I continue to see a lot of posts about are coyotes and people saying, oh, we saw a coyote, be safe, be safe. And of course we want people to be safe, but we also want people to understand that coyotes are not quite what people think they are. They prefer to stay away from people. Of course, if you're harassing a coyote, you definitely have to be concerned about a coyote being aggressive. But most of the time, coyotes are going to run away from you. The biggest concern, honestly, is their interaction with things like our dogs and cats, smaller animals. They tend to hunt for smaller animals rather than larger animals. You can see them in packs, but a lot of times, especially when they're raising their young, but they're more likely to be solitary, when they're not raising their young, and so they're usually hunting smaller animals like rabbits and mice, and other types of small food. So they're not quite what people think they are. They might take something down like a small young deer or a sick deer, but deer is actually a pretty big animal for a coyote. Remember we said that coyotes typically range from 20 to about 50 pounds. So they're not quite as big as we think they are. So they're important in keeping many of these small mammal populations in check, like the mice and rabbits. And so if these populations of these small animals were allowed to become too large without having these natural predators, then it could definitely result in issues with the habitat, degradation of the habitat. So coyotes do play a very important role in helping the ecosystem. So again, they are very secretive, especially near humans. They're most active mostly early in the morning and late in the evening. So again, we're not as likely to see them. And they keep their young in or near the den while the pups are very young, so they aren't killed by predators such as wolves and mountain lions. Now, we don't have wolves and mountain lions in this region, so really the biggest threat to coyote pups and coyotes in general are humans, especially being hit by cars. You may have seen them hit by a car along the side of the road, and that's honestly one of the biggest threats to them is humans, hunting and being hit by cars, or even eating prey that has been poisoned by something, like rats or mice being poisoned by rodenticides. So we are their biggest threat. So it's important to learn about them so that way we know how to interact with them. The city of Troy has recommendations that they put out. You can go onto their website to help people understand more about coyotes. But some things you can do to help limit interactions with coyotes is to make sure you always have the garbage contained, that the garbage is closed and not available for wild animals like coyotes to get into them. If you put fruit on the ground, it can attract rodents, and which then in turn attracts things like coyotes. So even if you have a tree that has fruit on it, picking up the fruit from that tree is helpful, so that way it's not attracting the rodents, which then attract the coyotes. Some people will leave pet food outside. Sometimes people will leave, dog food or cat food, or even bird seed. If you have a lot of that outside where it's available to be reached by something like a coyote, then that can attract them. So keep those things packaged up and locked away where they can't get to it. And then, of course, using a fence as a barrier, especially if you have dogs or cats that you want to let out in the yard, they can be used as a barrier. They should be at least 6 to 7 feet tall because, believe it or not, coyotes can leap those fences, and they're very good climbers. So I never leave my dog out in the yard when I have had a fenced-in yard. I have never left my dog unattended anyway. I'm usually out there with them because while coyotes you're not as likely to see them jumping into your yard, it's not beyond possibility. And coyotes have been known to take small pets. So keeping your pets on a leash, keeping them in your view where you can observe them, can help make sure that coyotes aren't going to bother them. So, some other things you can do if a coyote comes around and it doesn't seem scared, is that you can kind of haze them, which means that you're using deterrence to discourage that coyote from hanging around and trying to keep them fearful of humans. That's the most important thing, is keeping them fearful of humans so they don't interact with us too much. So you can yell and wave your arms like crazy to try to scare off a coyote, using something that makes a lot of noise, like whistles or air horns. Making yourself as big and tall as possible to make yourself look threatening to a coyote. Or if you have like a jacket, wave it around so that way you're deterring them. But it's really important to remember that coyotes are more scared of you than you are of them. So if you are making yourself big and scary, they're more likely to run off. But you don't want to run from a coyote. Just make yourself as big and scary as possible. And sometimes it'll take a couple times of doing these things to make a coyote go away and leave the area for good. So now that I've given you some advice on how to live peacefully with coyotes, let me show you a couple of videos that I have here. This is from the footage that I really want to show you in this video was footage that was taken from a trail camera that people caught of a coyote moving with another animal in an area. But I decided to go ahead and just play the whole video from the CBS News channel that has it because they have some really good information in it. So I'm going to play this video for you.
It was just during the normal review of the video when the researchers came across something they had not expected. Here in the Coyote Valley, just south of San Jose, the Peninsula Open Space Trust is studying how animals travel at night. There are 50 game cameras hidden around and under highways. Infrared night video recorded a coyote about to cross under one road when suddenly a badger appeared. Coyotes and badgers are known to team up and hunt together.
Badgers like to dig, and they like to dig fast. Yeah. And so there's footage out there of a badger flushing a ground squirrel nest and getting a ground squirrel of its own. But there's another ground squirrel that comes out another entrance to the den, and the coyote nabs that one.
Something you'd see in a Disney movie. Different predator species not just getting along, but playing. Another video shows a full-grown buck moving under a freeway, not paying any attention to the roar of the traffic just above his head.
One by one, spot by spot, where these cameras and the roadkill surveys, we're working with our research team at Pathways for Wildlife, and we're getting a really good perspective of the sort of the wildlife dynamics, the interactions with the roadways.
It's only been a year and a half into a 3-year study, but so far, the cameras are showing a great deal of movement at night. The data is expected to help shape future urban planning decisions. In Palo Alto, Don Ford, KPIX5.
So I let the whole video play out because this has a really important topic for conservation. You may see in some areas where they are putting pathways for animals where there are highways, so it might be underground, or it might even be a bridge, a bridge that they put grass and trees in so animals can cross roadways safely. So it's real. These studies are really neat to try to understand how we can survive with wildlife and also keep us safe too. So this video was really neat. I really love this video of this coyote and this badger because I have to say I actually didn't realize until I saw this amazing video online that coyotes and badgers are mutualist species, that they help each other hunt for food. So here they just look like good buddies in this video, which is kind of cute. And that's what we, see of it. But really, they're playing an important role for each other. They're helping each other use their different hunting strategies to survive, which is what I really love about this video. And it shows how different species will participate with each other to help them in different ways to survive. Now, these other animals that they show in this video is really neat too, because all of these videos, again, where they're showing roadways and they're studying the passage, the movement of animals, is really important because a lot of times these animals move at nighttime when we can't see them. So it helps us understand how they move and help us understand how we can maybe put in passageways for these animals to move underneath or across above roadways without being hurt by cars, and then again keeping us safe. So that's one reason I really like this video. The next video I'm going to play here for you is again to show you another kind of more fun side to coyotes, because a lot of people are fearful of them. Sometimes I will hear people say, I saw a coyote, I was walking down the trail and I got really scared. And like I said earlier, if you see a coyote walking down the trail, make yourself loud, make yourself big, just scare it off. Sometimes animals will continue to approach, and if this happens, it's because it's probably a sick animal, in which you should call somebody like the DNR in case it is an animal that has rabies and it's causing it to act not like it normally would. But most of the time, if these animals are healthy and they don't have anything that's affecting their decision-making in their brain, they are going to run away. So if you see a coyote and you're walking down the trail, just shout, make yourself big, and typically they'll run away. So here's the next video I want to show you. Oh, I actually forgot. This is not the video that I want to show you of the coyote being playful, but this video I'm going to prepare you because I wanted you to hear what they sound like. So if your computer is really loud right now, you might want to turn it down a little bit because this is going to be fairly loud, but I want you to hear what they sound like. They do little bits of howls, but they don't howl as much as wolves do. They actually have more of these cries, these barking cries when they're talking to each other. And it can sound pretty frightening if you're hearing this at night, especially as they show up more and more around our homes. So I just wanted you to hear what this sounds like, so that way if you do hear it, you know what it is, and maybe you're not quite as frightened when you hear it. So I'm going to play this. So again, you might want to turn your volume down if it's loud. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. So that was, again, some video that I found on YouTube, and that shows their communication with each other. Coyotes are less likely to form packs than wolves are, but they may form small packs from time to time, and this is what it sounds like when they are talking with each other. And you're most likely to hear this at night because they're mostly nocturnal, which means they come out at night and sleep during the day. But again, like I mentioned earlier, you might see them during the daylight hours. So that's what they sound like if they're talking to each other. If there is a siren that goes off, they will respond to those sirens and bark and yelp in response to those sirens. That will trigger them to go off. So here's the video I wanted to show you that just showed up online not too long ago. It was actually, the date stamp here is May 21st, 2020, and this was from Adam Schoenfeld's YouTube page. I love this video. He captured it on his security footage around his house from Ring.com. He has a small little mini golf course type thing in his backyard, and this coyote showed up at nighttime, and I'm not going to tell you yet what it does. I'm going to let you see for it yourself if you haven't seen this video already. You may have already seen it if you follow a lot of nature videos like I do on Facebook. That's mostly what I use Facebook for, is to follow all these nature videos. So let me play this for you. So there's the coyote, and that's the lights coming on. And there it is playing with the golf ball. So they're not as scary as people think they are. Again, you obviously don't want to harass a coyote or try to approach it, but they're not as scary as people think they are. And that's part of the reason I wanted to show you this video, is to show you some of the lighter sides of coyotes. Here it's investigating this ball. It's probably playing with it because it's not sure what it is and it's trying to figure out what it is. So that's kind of what we see here. It's kind of hard to tell if this is a young coyote or not. It's not a pup, that's for sure. But it's at least investigating and exploring things. So just like our dogs, like most of our dogs, they are very curious. And so they like to investigate things that are going on around them. Coyotes their average, or their range of their lifespan in the wild is about 10 years, which is pretty high in the wild. For captivity, it can be about 18 years. And again, it's higher in captivity because they don't have as many stresses, as many threats to them in captivity as they do in the wild. The average lifespan in the wild is about 14.5 years. And the average lifespan in captivity is can be up to 21 years. So again, I hope you're enjoying this video as much as I did, because again, it gives you kind of the lighter side of the coyote and makes you appreciate them a little more than what a lot of us have perceptions of these animals. So usually coyotes, they'll have a home range of about 2 to 5 square miles, and this is the average in urban areas. In more rural areas, their home range size may be larger, averaging 8 to 12 square miles. But the range depends on the food and cover available. Okay. All right. And that is the end of the videos and photos that I have to show you. So I'm going to switch back over here to the camera. Okay. And I'm just taking a quick look here to see if there are any other questions that I missed. And I don't think there were. One thing I want to tell you is if you want to learn more about these animals, there's a great brochure on the DNR's website. It looks like this. Actually, I just printed it off as a page. But it's all about coyotes and giving you more information about them, how you can coexist with them. And let me tell you really quickly, they have they call it SMART, so it stands for something, and this is what it stands for. So Coyote SMART, the S stands for safe to enjoy from a distance, which we talked about, that they're okay if you're not getting too close to them and you're not harassing them. Make noise if they are too close, so we talked about screaming and yelling and clapping hands and whistling to keep them away. A stands for accompany pets outside. So again, it's very important that if you have pets that they are within your view, so that way you can make sure that they are safe and coyotes are not bothering them. Remove bird feeders. So if you have a coyote problem and the coyotes are coming too often around your house and you want to discourage them, you may have to remove the bird feeders from around your house because these attract small birds and mammals that coyotes would naturally like to eat. So, you know, that might be something you have to consider. And then the T stands for take in the trash. So like I mentioned earlier, not keeping your trash outside or keeping it contained so that way they can't get into it or their prey can't get into it. So these are some things you can do to try to discourage coyotes from around your house. So this is what I had to share for you today. There's so much more information than I probably could easily do a program on this for a couple hours, like a lot of these topics, but I don't want to talk your ears off too much, and I want you guys to have a chance to get outside. And I just saw a question pop up here. I'm watching the questions on another device here. Somebody says, are coyotes more active at night or all day? They're most active at night, although it's not terribly uncommon to see them out during the daytime. So they are considered nighttime hunters, but you can see them during the daytime. So it's not terribly unusual to see them out during the daytime. So again, if you have any other questions after I end here, please feel free to post them in the comments and I will try to answer them. Go to the Michigan Department of Natural Resources page. They have lots of great information on there. And again, there are hunting and trapping seasons for coyotes and foxes, so you can learn more about that online, but it's very important to follow these regulations so we can make sure that we aren't putting too much pressure on their populations, because we would like to see them around for many years to come. They do play a very important role in our ecosystem. So I hope you all enjoyed this program and learning about Michigan's canids, or wild dogs. We will be I'll be doing another program next Tuesday at 1 p.m. And likely the topic will be about wildlife babies. That is my plan. There's a lot of wildlife babies popping up right now, like rabbits and fawns, lots of birds, and I have lots of video to share with you guys and pictures so we can learn about these wildlife babies, what you should do when you see them, how you can help them and keep them safe. So next Tuesday at 1 p.m., that will most likely be the topic, is wildlife babies. So I hope you all have a great weekend. Come out on the trails, stay safe and healthy, and I will see you all next time. All right, take care. Thank you so much. Bye.